Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And he's somewhat hazy Garret Price, but not hazy.
I switched it back. I switched it back. I forgot.
If you're watching the YouTube, you'll understand. Garrett's got his teleprompter
Heavenly
up
glow.
so you can watch. He's got the heavenly glow against his body. But we're back wrapping up our What Are the Odds episodes of a player finishing as either a top 6 quarterback, a wide receiver 1, a running back 1. And we close it out with what are the odds of a tight end finished as a top 6 tight end in PPR. And everybody, you're going to find out why I'm such a tight end slut. It's because they're so hard to come by, but when you have one, they're a difference maker, and they're a difference maker for a long time. So out of all the numbers that we're doing, Garrett, they're all pretty close to the same, right? Like it was pretty consistent in what we saw. Like, oh, the odds are here, a little shocking. Not here, because you went back all the way to what year, Garrett?
I went all the I have a specific player that I targeted with the years every time. This one I was like, Tony Gonzalez is like the tight end GOAT. We have to get him in this data set. So I went all the way back to the year 1997.
And holy Nikes. Tony Gonzalez in 1997 played 17 seasons. 17 seasons. You know how many times he was a top 6 dynasty tight end PPR? 16 out of 17 years.
Oh,
Wowzers. Wowzers in my trousers. Now to be fair, he didn't have a lot of competition way back in the day. There was no even time. You had Ozzie Newsome out there. You had for a short window there. He has to be on the list. Where's his name? I forgot his name. Dallas Clark.
Shannon
I was like Dallas Clark back in the day. He was somebody. Shannon Sharp. Freddie Jones.
He was like one of the few good ones.
Freddie Jones played for the Packers, right?
I don't even know. I'll have to look.
I don't know who Freddie. That was the one guy on the list that I didn't even know, and I didn't look up. I was like, I don't know who Freddie Jones is, but
I'm gonna Google him.
You
guys talk.
Apparently, he was good at one point. I have no idea.
He's on the list. Drafted in 1997. Oh, look at Google Freddie Jones. Look at the guy who comes up.
There's an old white guy. San Diego and Arizona. San Diego and Arizona is who he played for.
Wow, those are way warmer than Green Bay.
The much warmer cities.
You got the same old white guy that shows up. Wow, Freddie, you've aged bad.
Wow, these years have not been kind.
Got drafted 70 years after he was born. Come on, Freddie. Good for you. Yeah, but these numbers are like, wow, it's the same guys over and over and over again. And there's some active players on here that are already in that elite tier almost, like kind of already creeping up here. So let's start how we always have, Garrett, and let's start off with the percentages.
All right, so the percentages, this one's flipped from the last show. 53%, almost 54% of the players that are top 6 tight ends, so not just tight end ones, but top 6 tight ends, 53% of them will not do it again or have not done it again based on our data set from 1997 through 2020, and that's the year that you are drafted for what that's worth. So 53.8% of those guys, 1-year wonders. Only 46% of those guys have done it 2+ seasons.
Okay. That's crazy. The number goes down then to 36.54%. 4+ seasons, 23%. 5+ seasons, 13.46, and then 8+ seasons, 7.69. Only 4 guys. But again, these numbers are skewed because it's all the same guys.
It's all the same guys. You'll see names repeated over and over and over and over.
The percentages are even lower because it's just the same guys. They're the same guys doing it over and over again. So we mentioned Tony Gonzalez is the GOAT so far when it comes into their overall finishes. And After that, he had 16. Nobody's ever going to catch that number, right? Like nobody's ever going to ever catch that number. He's going to go down as the GOAT for fantasy tight ends for most seasons because nobody's even play that long.
It's almost inconceivable. Yeah, somebody would have to play for like 25 years, I think, to get to that number again. It's insane. Just because I mentioned it at the end of the last show, but and maybe he's the impetus of this the whole thing. Tony Gonzalez, he might have been kind of the guys that flipped the tight end position into this pass catching dominant role. But there's so much more competition. So I think especially top 6, this is going to be a much more fluid situation, kind of, especially 4, 5, 6 is going to be a much more fluid situation, kind of year in and year out as more of these tight ends that are uber athletic guys, maybe guys that would be playing basketball in the past, but are now seeing careers in football and kind of gravitating towards the tight end position. As that becomes even more and more prevalent as the years go on, I think it's just going to be it's going to water it down even more.
Yeah, and
that even harder.
And this goes back to 1997. So here's another shocking number for you. Over the last 27 years, I mean, you could be born and almost get close to running for president of the United States for how much time has passed. And only 24 players over the last 24 years have been a top 6 PPR tight end 2 or more times. Again, this is why I'm such a tight end slut, and I gobble those up because it's such an elite commodity they can own, right? Like it's such a and remember, if you have one or if you have 2 and there's only 5 in existence, you have almost half the league. You have almost half of them. Like for you, that's why I'm in a league where I have Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid in both leagues, like multiple leagues. And I have 0 interest in trading one of them, 0.0 interest. I'm keeping them both. I have no problem. That's the one position where hey, I guess no, all positions but usually if I have a good, 2 really good running backs, I'll try and trade one of them and better my team at another position. But you would think oh, you have 2 really good tight ends, man. It's such a rare commodity. You should trade one and get other stuff to help your team. But I'm nah, people usually don't want to give you what at least what the tight end slut thinks they're worth, right? People always want to undervalue them. So to me, it's I'll just roll with them and just hammer the league home, right? In case one gets hurt, put them in my flex spot, no big deal. But 24 out of the last 27 years, 24 players, that is nuts. We mentioned Tony Gonzalez is at the top with 16 out of 17. We have 1, 2, 3 players that have done it 8 times. 3.
All right. So before I tell you who those players are, Rich, something just popped into my mind. Do you remember the popular trend? This would have probably been mid 2000s where girls would always get writing on the butt of their shorts. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was a very popular trend. Okay. I really want to buy you a pair of booty shorts that just say tight end slut on it. I think you would look good in a pair of those.
I mean, I would wear them if they weren't booty shorts.
Nope. I feel didn't they used to say stuff like juicy and stuff crap like that on their butt?
Yeah, now I remember. I'm a very respectable gentleman, so I usually don't look at the tuchus of other women. So I usually don't know what they would say. I just
look
don't
at you,
know.
Rich.
I thought it said pink for those Victoria's Secret shorts.
I think that was the thing too. Yeah.
I don't know what you perverts are doing around town, but let me tell you what's written across my shirt. And it says Dynasty Nerds. Okay. That's respectable. That's respectable. Oh, all right. Garret, know what else we have to do before we I want to announce at the beginning of the show too.
Yeah.
The Scott Fishbowl winners for the we did a Scott Fishbowl contest. And if we keep talking, we're going to forget to announce the winners and we'll just completely forgot. So I hate to interrupt this moment, but this is an important announcement. We have Scott Fishbowl enters winners. The Nerd Herd had 8 more entries to give away to the coveted Scott Fishbowl. Garret, announce the winners.
Yes. So we had 8 spots to give away. 1 was already given away on the live show last Thursday. So we have 7 here. And the ways you were able to get in were submitting to my email address. You sent over a screenshot of you either subscribing or a picture of you subscribing to the the Dynasty Nerds podcast, leaving a rate or review, subscribing on YouTube, or the third one, which got you an extra entry, a picture of you in a Dynasty Nerds shirt. So those were your ways to get in. And here are our 7 winners. So we will reach out to you via email, but they are Sean Peters, Joel Leland, Doug Simpson, Abe Zawandi, Patrick Walker-Smith, Evan Habib, and Joseph Gross. So congratulations to you 7.
I hope one of you come in second place right behind me and beat out over 4,000 other contestants. And honestly, I actually hope you come behind Matt as well. So that's it. And then you can look at our booty shorts and see what they say. Mine will definitely not say juicy. It will say voluptuous.
It'll say
a lot of words, but there's enough space behind that rumpus to write all those words. So, let's get back to tight. Speaking of booty shorts, let's get back to these tight ends.
Speaking of tight ends.
So we have 3 guys that did it 8 times, Garrett, who are the juicy players?
So the juicy tight ends here, we have 2 retired guys and Antonio Gates and Jason Witten. Both of those guys started their career in 2003, played for a very long time. Both had 8 top 6 seasons. 7 of those 8 were top 3 for Antonio Gates. 5 of those 8 were top 3 for Jason Witten. But then we got a guy that could still get a few more. And in fact, I expect that he'll get a few more.
Yeah.
And that's Mr. Travis Kelce. 8 of those as well in only 11 seasons, whereas Antonio Gates, Jason Witten, they played 16 and 17 seasons respectively. He's only played 11. 8 of those 11 seasons, 72% of the time, he's been a top 6 fantasy tight end. And 7 of those 11 years, he's been a top 3 tight end. Really, really impressive.
Yeah, and that's the difference between other guys as well. Tony Gonzalez, 17 years in the league. Antonio Gates, 16 years in the league. Jason Witten, 17 years in the league.
Yeah, and obviously, Travis Kelce, we all think of him as the best tight end, modern times. He for sure is. And it's crazy to think how much better Tony Gonzalez's finishes were as far as just number of times up there in the top 6. It's almost like everyone else is just playing for second. Tony Gonzalez is the best that was, and ever will be. So Travis Kelce obviously has the best opportunity to solidify himself as that number 2 guy. But for some of the younger fans, they don't even remember seeing Tony Gonzalez play. It will be Travis Kelce in their brain, and Gonzalez is just this old guy that kind of happened before their time. But Tony Gonzalez was slam dunking balls in the goalposts for years and years and years and years. It's crazy, man. Just I didn't even realize how good and how dominant he was until we saw these numbers. So
yeah, and it's crazy to say too. I never knew Tony Gonzalez was a dominant either. But what's also crazy is when people are like, "Oh, Travis Kelce, the best dynasty tight end there ever," blah blah blah. You're like, no, he's just as good as Antonio Gates right now. Like, what do you mean? They both have been in the top 6 fantasy tight end 8 times, and they both have 7 top 3 finishes. They're equal.
Sure.
If absolutely. If his career ended right now, Antonio Gates and him would be on this board neck and neck forever. And I mean, luckily for Travis, it's not ending right now, and he's likely to finish in the top 6 at least a couple more times in his career before it's over. So
and to be fair, Kelce finished as number 1 overall almost every single year, and his point differential was like drastically different than like all the other, like him and number 2 were like 100 points off. So Kelce is definitely better than Antonio Gates. I was just using it as like a statistical reference here for what we have, but Kelce like just dominated the field where he was like wide receiver 6, wide receiver 7.
Antonio Gates was pretty good in his time as well, man. When he was there with the Chargers, he was really kind of running things with Phillip Rivers as well. So I think people forget how dominant he was. He was in an era though with also other good guys. So he had the Jimmy Grahams, the Gronkowskis, all those type of guys kind of at the tail end of his. Those guys were coming on. Yeah, Jason Witten. Yep, all those guys.
Hey, Nerd Herd, this is Rich Dotson. I've got some exciting news for you. Underdog Fantasy is back with their annual Best Ball Mania tournament, and this year it's bigger and better than ever with a whopping $15 million prize pool. Best Ball Mania 5 is the ultimate fantasy football competition where you draft your team and then sit back and relax. No trades, no waivers, just your best lineup every week automatically set by Underdog. For just $25, you can enter for a shot at the grand prize of $1.5 million. Plus, there are tons of other prizes throughout the season, including $500,000 for the top regular season performer. And guess what? We've got a special offer just for our listeners. Use the promo code NERDS when you sign up, and Underdog will match your first deposit 100% up to $100. That's right, double your money to get more entries and more chances to win. Don't miss out. Drafts are happening now, and entries close before the first game of the season. Head over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app, sign up with the promo code NERDS, and start your journey to fantasy football glory today. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. The terms do apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call 1-800-889-9789.
All right. Well, we only have one guy that had 6 tight end top 6 seasons. And that's our good friend Jimmy Gam Gam. Good old Jimmy Gam Gam here has 6 seasons, and he really had a spurt there where he was just awesome. And then he just kind of fell off. But early on in his career, he was actually outpacing a guy that we thought was probably better, and Rob Gronkowski. But Jimmy Graham was the one really running things for several years there.
Yeah, and that was just an overall great tight end class that had Rob Gronkowski in that draft class, that had Jimmy Graham in that class. If you remember, there was only one first-round pick in that class. It was Jermaine Gresham by the Bengals. He was a first-round pick. He was in that draft class. And then, of course, Aaron Hernandez was in that class too, who was a fantastic dynasty tight end for that short window before he got all knifey knife.
Yep. That is one way to put it. All right.
It was a gun. It wasn't a knife. I apologize. There's nothing funny about that kind of stuff. I'm just a sick human being and think there's humor in everything.
We have 2 guys that have top 6 seasons 5 or more times. One of them we consider an all-time great. The other we talk about as being washed up. But Rob Gronkowski, one of the GOATs at tight end, surprisingly in his 11-year career, only 5 top 6 seasons and only 3 top 3 seasons. Now, those seasons he was good. He was really, really good. Put up absurd numbers, but dealt with a lot of injuries, had the early retirement, then came back, and just an odd career. But when he was on, he was on. But the guy that's with him, in only 7 seasons, 5 of those have been top 6 seasons, Mr. George Kittle, which this is much higher than I expected to see him.
I don't think he's washed up.
I don't think he's washed up either. I
talk about him as a sell because I think
he's just drowned out by all the other targets. That's all. When they're all on the field, like he doesn't eat as much as he should be. But that doesn't mean he can't be like a top 6 guy.
I think he's unfortunately inconsistent.
Yes.
And he'll just put up monster games and then give you a bunch of duds and in between another monster game. Gronkowski, I think, was a far more valuable tight end than he was, even though their numbers would say that they're finishing the top 6 at a similar rate or the same amount of times anyway. Rob Gronkowski, when he was on the field, I felt like he was the majority of the time you were getting very decent production out of him. decent to very good. And Kittle, he'll put up like monster games where he gets 4 or 5 touchdowns or something crazy. You know what I mean? He'll put up a 45-point game, and then he'll get you a 3, a 6, a 8. He is very inconsistent, but I mean, he's a hell of a football player. I don't want that to sound like I don't think he's a good football player. But what, to Rich's point, there's just other mouths to feed in that offense, and they spread the ball around. So it's hard to nail down who's going to get it week to week a lot of the times in San Fran.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get to 4 or more top 6 seasons. We have Freddie Jones, who we talked about earlier. We were not aware of who he was, but he had 4 of them, drafted in 97. So good for good old Freddie Jones. Todd Heap with 4 of them there with the Baltimore Ravens. Chris Cooley, he had 4 of them as well. Although
Cooley, man, that dude was my favorite.
He was awesome, but he's the only guy on this list, 3 or more, to not have any top 3 seasons. So you had 4 top 6 seasons, but 0 top 3 seasons, which is kind of interesting.
That is an anomaly. It looks like on the list here as well.
Only one to do that.
Yep.
Zach Ertz, he has 4 of them as well. Still a current guy, unlikely to crack this list again, but still heck of a career. But a guy that we expect to do it several more times, Mr. Mark Andrews with 4 as well. So he's another one of these current players that's slowly climbing up this list.
And what's crazy here is when you look at this over the last, if you go back over this whole list, there's only 12 guys on this list that have done it 4 more times. 12. 2 of them are Baltimore Ravens at 2 completely different eras, and Todd Heap and Mark Andrews. And then if you go past, if you go from when Todd Heap was drafted 2001 on, then there's only 10 guys on this list since 2001 over the last 23 years. Again, 2 of those are Baltimore Ravens. Hello, Isaiah Likely.
Hey-o. Well, and even before that, he didn't make the list because he was drafted too early. But you'll see in a couple of those early on seasons, Shannon Sharp was running things for a long time, and he started his career with Denver, but ended with the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh yeah, so yeah, you're right. Shannon Sharp there too. I wonder how many of those were Ravens tight end ones. So basically, if you're a Baltimore Raven, it don't matter who the coach is, what's going on, but it's in the crab cakes, people. It's in the crab cakes. You're a tight end 1, top 6. It's in there. So that's a pretty interesting fact. So yeah, only 12 guys over the last 27 years did it 4 or more times. That's a pretty shocking number all in itself.
Yeah,
and the guys that we look to get higher are already on the list, like Mark Andrews and Kelsey.
Yeah, and for me, we're about to do the list of guys that did it 3 times, but the list of guys that did it 2 times were really small. So that's the thing that I find pretty interesting. If you repeat as a tight end 1, it's much more likely that you're going to continue repeating as a tight end 1 than it is that you're just going to do it for a second time and be done. Like, there's a very high likelihood that you're going to be continuing that success. And I think that's the big thing for me is if we're seeing early success from a tight end, for the most part, you can expect that to continue.
And that's top 6. So it kind of pushes what makes like us fawn over a guy like Sam Laporta, right? Like, oh, he did his rookie year. All right, he's going to be a tight end 1 for forever. Like forever. Not Tony Gonzalez forever, but hopefully like Travis Kelsey
7,
forever, right? Yeah,
8,
can I get 11 years and get eight of those years and put me in that elite category? So again, don't be afraid to go out and get those guys, right? Like open yourself up, let them in, or just be like me, Dynasty tight end slut. Hey guys, let me tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Guess what? Our app the mini is live on Sleeper right now. The Dynasty GM, you can use the analyzer, you can use the trade calculator, and my favorite thing is the inbox, right? Where all your trades from all your Sleeper leagues are right there. You can actually push trades through the actual Sleeper app. And right now we couldn't be more excited to be partners with them. And right now, if you don't know, they are doing DFS. And I know how many people that play Dynasty play DFS as well. And right now, there's not a better place to play DFS than Sleeper. They're offering up to 100 times your entry, the highest payout in the whole DFS market right now. You can track your fantasy players and your sleeper picks in real time. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats, and only on Sleeper you can get up to 100 times your payout. You can share with your friends and get rewarded together. Make sure you use that promo code NERD so our friends know that friends sent them their way. And get your deposit match and have a good time. You have all your DFS, all of your fantasy leagues, and now even a Dynasty GM in one spot. It is fully operational inside Sleeper right now. And then when you're a Nerd Herd member, you get that full access to that. And remember, you also want to download the Dynasty Nerds app because they're both in there. Check it out. Check our friend Sleeper. Check out the DFS. Use that promo code NERDS.
Get your whole estate.
All right.
More
So
the merrier.
You know it, handsome.
3 or more. We have Jeremy Shockey, which is a great name. He was a fun one to watch. Dallas Clark, Vernon Davis, Greg Olson, Delaney Walker, and then we've got 2 current guys here, and Evan Ingram and TJ Hawkinson. Both have done it 3 times. And Evan Ingram kind of surprised me because I remembered his rookie year, and I remembered that he did it this year, but I kind of forgot that he was a top 6 guy in 2022. But he came in 5th in 2022 with the Jaguars. So he really revitalized his career in Jacksonville.
Yeah, remember when I went over those stats about him, why he was kind of like a buy there at the tight end, because like both years in Jacksonville, he is where he really kind of planted himself when he got that deal, then got extended. And again, kind of goes back to what we're talking about here. Like the data kind of helps back end your point. Like, wow, odds are he's just going to keep going because these guys are the only guys that keep going. Once you enter that 3 territory, it's like, just keep going, buddy. Like the Energizer bunny. Like the odds are you're going to keep going as long as you're playing, or at least probably in that age window at least. But remember, these age windows kind of last a little bit longer on the tight ends. Even like Zach Ertz, he's older now, but he played a little better towards the back end. I love seeing Jeremy Shockey on here. Jeremy Shockey and Chris Cooley played a lot, very similar. In my eyes, they remind me a lot of each other. So it's good to see those guys so close to each other as well. Those 2 bad boys, right? Little naughty boys. And remember, if I'm a tight end slut, I gotta go a certain way. So I like a little Shockey, a little Cooley, like a little shock, a little cool, liking it. But obviously Hawkinson and Ingram here are going to kind of keep going, right?
Yeah, I mean, those guys will be fun to monitor, kind of see where they end up. I mean, obviously with Hawkinson, the injury, he's a guy that might start to this season a little bit slow, but he's got so many seasons ahead of him that I'm not worried about him kind of going forward. I would expect him to be in that 5 to 6 range within 3 or 4 years. So it's no big deal, and that should be, by then he should be slowing down a little bit. So I don't think he's going to reach, I don't think he's ever going to catch Travis Kelce or anything like that, but I think he's got a good chance to be scrapping for that 8 tier.
I bet he passes Jimmy Graham at 6.
I think he can do that. I think he can get to 7, maybe 8 by the time his career is done. He's definitely got the talent. And
that's all time great. That's like all time great tight end. Put him on the Mount Rushmore.
Right. But he was a guy that, he did it when he was paired up with Kirk Cousins. That's kind of when the light really clicked on for him. And now he's not. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Hawkinson.
Word. Well, my eyes are on him, front and back.
What does the back end say?
Juicy,
of course.
Last group we have here of guys that did it just 2 times. We only have 5 guys in this group. So like we've been saying, once they repeat, just expect them to do it for a 3rd time or a 4th time or a 5th time, because more than likely, if they've repeated, they're going to just keep going. So we only have a few guys in this group, and Randy McMichael, Algie Crumpler, Kellen Winslow, Austin Hooper, and Darren Waller. Those are the only guys to be a top 6 tight end twice.
Rich,
Wow,
Kellen Winslow. What could he have been without the motorcycle accident?
He could have been a Hall of Famer.
He could have been a Hall of
looked
Famer.
so good, and he had to go out in that parking lot and do those motorcycle tricks and tear up his knee, because that's what the Browns are cursed, and that's what usually we did. Remember, we traded up for Kellen Winslow, and we're like, hey, we know Big Ben's on the board here. We know that he's there. Ben Roethlisberger out of Miami, Ohio, but like, what's he going to amount to? Let's trade up one spot. I mean, we got Butch Davis. He's got to get a Miami guy. We got to get up there and get that Kellen Winslow kid. I mean, what's he going to do down the road? It's like break into a couple trailers and say hi to some senior citizens. Like, what's going on around here? Like, this is a good guy. Let's get him. We talk about like some bad guys in those tight end groups, man. They do some bad things down the road. What could have been? What could have been? Hall of Fame father. But Austin Hooper had those 2 good years. And look at it. And the Falcons on the list. Algie Crumpler, Austin Hooper, a couple Falcons on the list down here.
Tony Gonzalez was a Falcon for part of his career, mostly with the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs have arguably the 2 greatest of all time, and Tony Gonzalez and Travis Kelce.
And just to think here. So over the last 27 years, only 24 players. Multiple players on here were on the same team. So just to think how many teams are out there, your favorite NFL team has never, over the last 27 years, never had a top 6 tight end. Not one. I don't see the Bengals on here. I don't see them either.
They're on the one-hit wonder list.
Are the Browns on there?
Kellen Winslow.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No Steelers on here. Obviously, we have a Cardinal and Freddie Jones. Never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yeah, pretty crazy though. So it's such a small list. Like same thing. Like you would expect. Like there'd probably be a lot of guys that did it twice. No, just 5 or 6. Was it 2, 4, 5? Five guys.
Yep.
That's it. And then what's even crazier, it's not like the list is like over the last 27 years that did it one time, it was 29 guys. So like one a year snuck in there then. So like even that variance isn't too crazy. It's not like, there's like this laundry list of one guy sneaking in there. No, it's just about 29, like one a year sneaks in there, which again shows you it's the same guys over and over and over again finishing those windows. But there's some fun names in here. Like when you look at the guys that did it one time and like think about like the hype train that kind of followed them, like when they did it early, like Jordan Reed, for example. Remember when Jordan Reed for Washington? Like, wow, man. Being the capital S, lowercase L, capital U, lowercase T that I am for this position, I was all in on Jordan Reed. Like I had a lot of shares out there. Like I was putting I got spread wide. I really opened myself up for Jordan Reed, and I really tried to fulfill myself. And it worked. Jordan Cameron for the Browns. Remember how young he looked?
I love Jordan Cameron and Julius Thomas right above him as well.
Yeah.
For the Broncos. He was a big time. That was a converted basketball guy that flashed in the pan. Same as wasn't Jordan Cameron was a basketball guy as well.
He was a basketball guy. Yep. Signed a big contract. He left the Browns for Jacksonville. Signed that big contract. Didn't do a damn thing. Miami. Sorry.
He had concussion issues.
Concussions.
That was the problem with him. Yep.
Wrecked his career. But
yeah.
Owen Daniels was one that surprised me. I would have thought for sure he was going to be on here 3 or 4 times, but only one for Owen Daniels. And I remember talking about him a lot in my early days of playing fantasy football. So that was a bit of a surprise for me.
Is it Mercedes Lewis still playing?
He's still got a chance.
He's still got a chance, guys.
A couple guys shocked me on here were like Desmond Clark was kind of a shocker. They only did it one time in the top 6. Bubba Franks, definitely at the time he played, like he was a big athletic tight end. So he kind of shocked me that he kind of get in there a couple more times back in Green Bay. He entered the league in 2000. Some of these guys have no idea who they are.
With Favre. Yeah. Bubba Franks was, I was actually shocked he wasn't on there multiple times also.
I thought Brandon Pettigrew was going to be good. I think Martellus Bennett did it late in his career too when he snuck in there.
Well, he was stuck behind Jason Witten for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't until he got to Chicago after his whole rookie career or whole rookie contract ran out is when he finally cracked that list.
Some high draft pick guys in here, and Tyler Eifert for the Bengals, you know, thought he was going to come in. He was a first round pick, going there to do multiple years, only did it one time. Kyle Rudolph for the Vikings.
Eric Ebron, dude, for Detroit. Jeez.
Yeah, top 10 pick. He was a top 10 pick. Man, did his hands suck.
Pettigrew
yes,
too.
They were bad.
Both of them were.
Yeah.
Brandon Pettigrew. So yeah, some interesting names on here, but so we look at this and then we go to, you guys want to bring up this all sheet that we have that Matt put together?
Real quick before we do
sorry.
that. But there's 3 guys not eligible for the list.
Okay.
2 of them are because they're current. One of them because he only actually played 3 seasons. So Aaron Hernandez did have one tight end 1 season, but he only played 3 seasons. So he wasn't eligible for the list, even though he's not a current player. So I thought we should at least
way to hang him out to dry.
Hey, look, they were in the list or they weren't. And then Kyle Pitts and Sam Laporta. Kyle Pitts and Sam Laporta were 2 guys that have not had enough years under their belt or multiple tight end 1 seasons yet.
I said dry, Matt, not die.
Uh-huh.
Not talking about Denver. Not talking about Denver.
Mile Die Stadium. All right.
Hey, Dynasty nerds, it's time to take your Dynasty game to the next level with FFPC's Dynasty Startup Leagues. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, FFPC has a league for you with entry fees ranging from $100 up to $5,000. Choose from a variety of formats, including Superflex, Best Ball Superflex, Triflex, 1QB, and Standard. With weekly lineups, waivers, trades, head-to-head matchups, and playoffs, FFPC's fully managed leagues provide the ultimate Dynasty experience. Most importantly, the leagues are here to stay. FFPC has never had a Dynasty league fold. They manage the entire commissioner experience from buy-in management to fulfilling your orphans. FFPC is perfect place to expand your Dynasty league portfolio. And here's the best part. As a Dynasty Nerds listener, you can get $25 off any entry fee as a new member when you use the promo code NERDS. Head over to myffpc.com now to draft your team, manage your roster, and dominate your league with FFPC. That's myffpc.com. Promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry fee for new members. FFPC, where Dynasty dreams become a reality.
So after we got done, or actually it was before I even got the last set of data points with the tight ends and everything like that, I started kind of thinking about these and compiling them. I just wanted to see how they looked kind of overlaid against each other. So the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, and the tight ends. So I threw a couple of them, they're in the 2 different data sets, basically percentage of number 1 seasons, and then the number of players that actually hit those marks per season. And I did all the same breakdowns that we've already talked about, right? The 1-year wonders, the 2+, 3+, 4+, 5+, through all the different categories for the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends that we've talked about. And I thought visually it would just help some people to look at this and kind of see them laid out all against each other. And for me, one of the big things that I saw that jumped off that I don't think I really realized is that big spike, right? For the quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks, yeah.
It just sticks right out. I mean, 69% are 2+. You know what I mean? They're going to hit that top 6 quarterback thing. If they've done it once, there's a 69% chance they're going to do it twice. And that's the highest spike, right? Out of any of them. The next closest one is running back, surprisingly, with the 57% hitting the running back 1 numbers. And then it's wide receivers, and tight ends got this weird kind of almost just straight slope from the 1, because that was the one that kind of skewed it and went opposite of the wide receivers as far as there was, 54% were 1-year wonder guys, and the other 46 were the 2-year guys. So that one it's a nice little slope, and I think it paints a picture as far as the percentage where you can expect these guys to kind of to be, and I think really you can see that the tight end, the one year wonders at tight end is the most common thing, right? You see it right off the bat. The 1 year wonders, the tight end is the highest one. And the 2 year for the quarterback is the highest one. So I think that just visually helps you kind of look at these things. But then you also look at the number of players as well. And I think this is the one that's going to at least speak to me as far as the wide receivers. The number of wide receivers was by far the high. It just that line, this chart is just above all the rest the whole way as far as number of players. For the 1 year wonders, the 2 year wonders. So that does kind of speak to the fact that it is a position that maybe we can wait on a little bit, right? Because there are a greater number of players. It's just, we're talking about the scarcity of positions all the time. And when we were going through these position by position, we kind of came across and said, hey, percentage wise, maybe it is a good gamble to go after these running backs. And I think this backs it up, because there are still, even though there's a small window for some of these wide receivers, maybe the window is smaller, there's still a lot of them. There's still a large amount of players at that position. So I think that's kind of what the bottom line chart does for me, is kind of figure out scarcity a little bit more at these positions and what we can expect from them.
Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the chart. If you're listening on the podcast, this is going to be in the notes of your podcast, Garrett. Make sure you put it in here. It'll be the overall chart too. And what Matt's referring to is like the number of players that have finished at that position. So it is kind of shocking. These shows, after we got done doing them, might change the way I approach my drafts, startups now, and how I go out and make trades, and how maybe trading that really good wide receiver one for that good running back might not be such a bad idea. Because like you mentioned, Matt, even the numbers here, you go back to the top, the running back one, to do it 2+ years, right? Compared to the wide receiver one, to do it 2+ years. It's 57% for the running back, 53% for the wide receiver. To do it 3+ years, it's 39% for the running back to do it, only 34% for the receiver to do it, right? So like, and obviously we know it doesn't really switch into the 4-year mark where it goes from 18% to 22%. So it's a 4% difference there. But so again, nothing crazy, right? It doesn't really get crazy there. It gets real crazy at the 5-year percentage mark. But again, running back so much more short-lived. But with the scarcity of numbers, that's where it really changes, what Matt said, where not only is the percentage higher for the running back, right? So just on percentages of alone for doing it, it's better for the running backs. But then on a scarcity of what Matt said, even though the percentage is higher, it was only 22 running backs and 34 to do it for 1 year. But then for 2 years plus, it was 29 running backs, 39 receivers. So that's like a whole extra 10 players that you can go out there and get. Like Matt said, the amount of players is so drastic. And then it starts to get a little bit closer when you get to 3 years, it goes from 20 and then 25. But it goes to show you, if you can go out there now in the second round, when we're looking at guys like, even in super flex leagues, we're like, oh, the quarterbacks, again, abundant, receivers are abundant. We're like, oh, I got to grab AJ Brown. Maybe you don't grab AJ Brown. Maybe the player that you have to grab is Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, and maybe it's Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Maybe this makes a guy like Devon Achane a little bit more valuable than we really thought he was, right? Guys are at least in that position to kind of chase this scale. And when we're hunting guys, when you're like, maybe when you're in a rookie draft, you haven't had a rookie draft yet, and you're looking at Jonathan Brooks and you're like, man, but Xavier Worthy's on the board. Maybe that skews the numbers a little bit, and it makes guys like Jonathan Brooks now, hey, I'm going to take him over Ladd McConkey. I'm going to take him over Xavier Worthy in these Superflex leagues, which that script was somewhat flipped, until I got done with these shows. It really has kind of put the perspective of, we've been pushing these running backs down for so long, and Dynasty community has really been pushing up everything else and just kind of shutting down the running back to the point of like now zero running back is a very, very popular term in Dynasty. Maybe And maybe that is true, right? I think that still is true over long term. I think what this does is really pivots my perspective on how important those elite guys are.
Top guys, for sure. That's what I was going to say.
Yes. The Bijan, like, I think that all holds true. But when you have an opportunity to get a guy like Bijan, when you have an opportunity to get a guy like Breece Hall, maybe it's not a bad idea to throw guys out there like AJ Brown, right? Like, hey, can I get AJ Brown? Maybe I have to give just a little bit on top, right? Or is it not as crazy? Again, is it not as crazy? It sounds crazy. What I'm about to say, I can't believe I'm about to say it. When you're approaching guys like, hey, I'll give you Amon-Ra St. Brown for Bijan Robinson. I'll give you Amon-Ra Brown for Breece Hall. It feels disgusting on my tongue saying it. And listen, when juicy's on your butt, you've had a lot of things on the tongue. So it's weird. I'm telling you, for me to say it and sound dirty, I'm going a distance here. But like, right? It doesn't like the numbers say it's not as crazy as it may sound is when you offer a guy like that.
All your juiciness aside, I think it does say that, right? I think it is kind of speaking to the fact that there's going to be another Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Whereas it's going to be much harder to nail down the other Bijan Robinson, the other Breece Hall, or somebody else that we think is going to be able to hit these running back one numbers multiple years in a row, 4 or 5 years in a row, like the total unicorns at the position. I think those guys are so hard to find. And I think you're going to be able to find an Amon-Ra St. Brown easier just because there's more players and more opportunity there than there is at the running back position.
Yeah, like, Garrett Wilson, for example, like is inching there. Like, and maybe it's Malik Neighbors. Maybe it's my boy Lad McConkey. We'll find out. Time will tell. And the tale of numbers here kind of points us one way. And it kind of makes me feel like it makes, Garrett, when you traded me Marvin Harrison Jr., I gave you Bijan Robinson. We made a straight up trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
seems pretty damn fair. And it seems like odds are more in your favor than they are mine. So
sure. I mean, but Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like he could enter that Justin Jefferson type tier, but yeah, I mean, after doing these shows, it does make me feel a little bit better about deals like that and pursuing in startups, in that second round where I would typically go wide receiver. Maybe I do lean an elite running back if he's still there on the board. Maybe Gibbs is an option. But it's not going to, but when we go back to the running back show, I'm not pursuing guys like the Jordan Howards, as much as I like him, Kyron Williams, the guys that are lower draft capital. We didn't draft them as high in the NFL draft or in our own rookie drafts that had an amazing 1 year. Those guys tend to not pan out. The ones that do tend to pan out are the guys that you drafted at the top 4, 5, 6 picks of your rookie draft that were first and second round picks in the NFL draft. The Joe Mixons, the Christian McCaffreys, the Jonathan Taylors. Those are the guys that maybe just have a little bit more value.
100%. And I'm very grateful for these shows. For somebody who's been playing Dynasty for 20 years, I learned a lot over this last couple of weeks of these data points. And make sure you look at the show sheets. Make sure you get these sheets, download them, save them, look at them, use them as reminders. Because it really does. It helps. It really kind of gives you a different viewpoint. And I think it really will help you in some of your trades where some of the market might say, hey, you gave up too much, you overpaid, but you're setting your team up for long-term success. And I think these charts can put you in a position of what we talked about earlier, Matt, of like the better your chances of repeating in championships, right? Like kind of like maybe even thinning yourself out a little bit on your roster, like by giving up some more draft picks and a player and stuff. So like you're not adding as much, but if you can get a good core of these guys, you don't need it because you're going to have about a 4 to 5 year window of having the top guys, which are going to immediately put you in the best chance to win your championship. And I think it's okay to thin out your roster and not be so deep and not so much depth if you can use this chart to really build your team a really good way. And I know, Matt, some of it does take luck by rookie because you did it with rookie drafting, a lot of it, not via trades. but that still shows you like if it all like whether you draft it that way and it looks into it, or you could trade for that way to build what you built. It is possible to build a team of that much power and magnitude, and I absolutely love seeing these numbers.
Yeah, so do I. And I drafted the core of my. You're talking about the team that I won, 3 in a row.
Beats. Yeah.
Yeah, I drafted the core of that team, but I definitely supplanted some guys towards the end, and even towards the beginning of my championship run, just some older veterans. And you need to do that kind of stuff a lot of the times just to solidify yourself. So I think I ended up getting like Tom Brady as my quarterback at one point, and Tony Romo. I traded for both those guys, so it was a 1 QB league, and those are important steps I think that you need to take when you're on the upswing.
Last thing I want to make sure that we don't that we highlight and we don't miss this point, and we hammered it home on the quarterback show, but here even more so, I want to make sure that we say this. If you have a quarterback that was a top 6 quarterback one time, there's a 70% chance that they do it again. So when you find those guys that can be those top tier quarterbacks, chances are they're going to do it again. That's the most predictable of all of the positions. So when you see it one time, know that there's a good chance you're going to see it again.
Absolutely. So if you enjoyed these shows and you felt you learned a lot, we actually have a lot more of this analytical data coming to Dynasty Nerds this fall. We're going to put you in position to have a lot of access to this kind of data, a lot of it. So if you appreciate it, best way to support this data and keep it coming and be in your back pocket and give you that edge over your league mates is get out there, get dynastynerds.com, join the Nerd Herd. If you're already a member, or maybe you're not in a position to subscribe to a website at this moment, or some tools, there's plenty of other ways you can support it by just leaving a review on iTunes or anywhere you leave a podcast, subscribing to the YouTube channel. It's free. Leaving some comments on some videos. Those are all things you do for free to support that. I'm really excited that we're getting a lot more data coming in, and we can do a lot more of these data points on the Dynasty Nerd shows. I know, Garrett, you just released our show sheet plans going up to the regular season. We have a lot more of these coming up as well. So if you enjoyed these, we appreciate the support. We only got a couple more months here until football's here, a couple months. And we only got about a month away until we start doing our divisional breakdowns, where we talk about every single player. So really excited about this. These were great shows. And I can't wait to go get on my booty shorts and think about all these trades I'm going to make.
Dynasty Hot Boy Summer. Come on, here we go.
You know it, sister. We'll be back next week talking more Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Adios.